On this podcast, we talk about different areas of business and all things marketing. My name is Dave Doyle.
And I'm Dave Alton, and this is Social Antics, another marketing podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Social Antics with myself, Dave, and Owen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just happy to be here, as always.
Happy to be live.
Happy to be alive.
What's happened to you this week?
Good weekend. Few drinks with the lads to forget this time of the year where we're grading inside the university, which is a particularly
This is your fun time of the year, isn't it?
fun time of year. Yeah, exactly. But on brighter news, we got accreditation. The business school that I'm working for, which is good.
Oh, you're top of the world now, isn't it?
Top 200 business schools in the world.
I saw 2%. That sounds better.
And 2%, whichever way you want to frame it, like, do you know what I mean?
So, top 2% of the world of business schools.
Business schools, yeah.
Very good, very good. You get a big promotion now, I'd say, will you?
No, unfortunately not. That's a touchy subject. We won't talk about the individual achievement. It's the sum of the many is all I'm interested in.
Team effort.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Very good,
yeah.
very good. No, fair play. This week we actually got quite excited this week. We got our first gifted beer.
Our first gifted beer. We're obviously doing something right. We're coming up in the world.
Yeah,
we didn't have to buy the beer this week, so neither of us bought the beer. It was gifted to us.
Gifted. It's in between that and an ad. Gifted.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, because it's not an ad. So just to be clear, honest review.
We still didn't pay for it.
We're not getting paid for doing it. We were not coerced into giving a favourable review. It's an honest review. We haven't had, well, might have had one before the podcast, but this is an honest review. Yeah, no mucking about.
So looking after their own, Yellow Belly down in Wexford sending us up some beers this week. So they sent us in the Citra Pale Ale, which I think the packaging, the branding and the cans look absolutely fantastic. We had a look online and they kind of carry the team out through all their beers. And you spotted that even there's kind of comic book side of things on the.
It's actually bizarre. So when we got these at first, I was very disappointed because there was no. So the way usually we tell the little story that's written on the side of the can. Yeah, exactly, with the foggy mountains and the wolf coming out from the fucking forest, that kind of shit. There's none of that at all. And I was kind of going, well,
a company focusing on the beer.
What do we talk about now? But no, actually, if you go onto their website, they've created comic books that tell the story of this fella who's on the front of their can is basically kind of a circus type character, or looks like a circus type character. And it's actually designed by someone internally within their organization. And they tell the story of the beer via this character through comic books, which is completely and utterly mental. So I just took some stuff down from the website, which I'm going to read because it's actually a very, very interesting way of describing kind of brand characters and things like that. So the Yellow Belly, which is the name of the main character, which spans all of their different beers, we know and love, is an interdimensional time-traveling brewer, believe it or not, but he had humble beginnings. He started life as an amalgamation of all of the brewery founders, combining their traits under the umbrella of a top hat and a handlebar moustache. So obviously the designer took the inspiration from all the different the founders of the business and basically embedded that within the character itself. So then in terms of the design in and of itself, the inspiration came from everything from Gangs of New York, which you can see, to the Wexford landmark statue of the Pikeman. I have no idea what that is, but I presume you do.
Yep.
Was mined for inspiration for our character. And after a series of iteration and sketches, he started to come to life. And it's actually mental. Like, I mean, there's the different trilogies of comics. There's the Blue Belly trilogy, which is his alter ego or arch nemesis, the Yellow Belly. But it's just a very, very different way of kind of communicating. It is, yeah, absolutely. You can download all the comic books and stuff like that. But it's actually I would say the description and the comic books are actually very, very well written and they're very, very detailed. So I took one paragraph out of it, which is incredible, right? So it says,
God knows what this is going to be now.
I'm telling you now, it says, we imagine the character as a worldly globetrotter, an adventurer who would get into scraps and crazy situations, all framed within a gothic pseudo-Victorian universe. That's incredible writing.
As they would say in Wexford, that's queer good. It's queer good.
Never heard that before.
I know,
Never heard that before.
I'm down here now. It's bet out me now.
Yeah,
at this stage.
fair enough. But even look, they seem like a fun kind of a brand anyway. Like even their Russian Imperial Stout is called It's Not Vodka, which I think again is kind of funny, like, you know. So no, look, I think they said they've brewed over 300 beers.
I saw there. Yeah, they're going since 2015. They have 4 main ones, but altogether about 300 beers, limited editions, all that kind of stuff. So phenomenal, doing very well.
So no, we literally didn't know this until like 10 minutes before we started the podcast. We
nice box arrived. Yeah,
box arrived. We had to decide, okay, what do we actually know about this beer? But no, it's really interesting. It stands out as a beer brand. So
fair play to the lads. Yeah, very good stuff. So I suppose this week what we're going to kind of focus on is on the back of a documentary that's after popping up on Netflix called White Hot, which focuses all around, I suppose, the rise and the fall of Abercrombie and Fitch over the last few years. Definitely on the fall side, I suppose, in terms of the practices going on within the management style, choice of clothing, and all that kind of side of stuff. So it was actually really, really interesting documentary. You recommended me to go and have a look at it, and a lot of stuff I didn't realise about what was actually happening within the organisation. You know, I wouldn't have had much dealings with them ever before. Never really shopped there once. I think I went into one of them. But
and you were told to leave under no uncertain circumstances.
I didn't fit the profile that they wanted inside in there. But no, phenomenal documentary. You know, it was really kind of giving insight. What was interesting though, it was from very one side, I suppose, in terms of, you know, it wasn't the CEO didn't, you know, make a comment which states in it that they asked him to make a comment and he declined and all this.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it gives the witness accounts of the people who were in the leadership team. Okay, the CEO wasn't involved, but I mean, the guys who were central to the creative process at the time in the kind of 90s, 2000s were interviewed. No, really, really interesting documentary, which kind of, I suppose it's a documentary about multiple different things, right? So one, it's a documentary about the power of advertising, but it's also about how advertising or more likely interpretations of advertising changes as society develops and, for want of a better word, gets more intelligent. So once we decided not to be completely racist, misogynistic, pigeonholing certain ideas of masculinity, then all of a sudden people started going, okay, we don't want to actually support this brand anymore, which I think is really, really interesting. So, no, really, really fascinating documentary. I think it's worth actually just to give people a kind of a sense, which is a quote from the CEO. The CEO was called, off the top of my head, it's
Mike Jeffries.
Mike Jeffries. So a number of, I think it was 2006, he did an interview with a magazine and he came up with this quote, which is an incredible quote from a CEO if you take it in today's context. So what he said was, that's why we hire good-looking people in our stores, because good-looking people attract other good-looking people, and we want to market to cool, good-looking people. Obviously, very good at like talking this particular individual. Very Trump kind of. I am great because you know I'm great. We don't market to anyone other than that, he said. So then to go on, he said, in every school there are the cool and the popular kids, and then there are the not so cool kids. Candidly, we go after the cool kids. We go after the attractive all-American kid with a great attitude and a lot of friends. A lot of people don't belong in our clothes, and they can't belong. Are we exclusionary? Absolutely. Which is just an incredible quote from any CEO today, you know? Yeah.
You wouldn't get away with it now, but I think going back to, like, to give a bit of context, I suppose, to the style of models they were going for, the people working inside in the store, they had they had manuals of what these people needed to look like, act like, you know, be involved in sports, ripped, you know, white males, tall,
Jocks, basically.
Yeah. So what was interesting, like, even going on the whole area of influencer marketing, they were, wherever their stores were located in certain areas, they were going to the local universities, getting the main cool king of the class kind of a thing, and getting him involved in Abercrombie Fitch, you know, giving him a whole load of clothing to basically wear, and then he was becoming a trendsetter in his little group. But what they also did is they were also looking for upcoming celebrities that hadn't broke onto the scene yet, in terms of, like, so they, you know, in terms of the female side of things, they had Taylor Swift, they had Jennifer Lawrence, they had Channing Tatum, Ashton Kutcher, you know, all these and obviously this was before they really, really broke onto the scene, and now they're global superstars. So they were obviously identifying key people that were making it in their areas, in their fields. But that whole area of trend setting, they knew how to tap into markets, and they knew how to kind of create this tribe and this fantasy and this, you know, group that you wanted to be part of. And I was even thinking of, you know, obviously they're not going anywhere near the ethics of how they ran this company, but I was even thinking, you know, closer to home, even the likes of Gymshark, Gym Plus Coffee, all these, like, you know, they've now, you know, exploded onto the scene. You're seeing them everywhere. Do you know, it's kind of that same kind of thing. That next thing, you know, is trend setting. You get the groups involved and start spreading from there.
I think what it is, so what brands nowadays do a lot better, right, is that, so if you look at consumer psychology 101, it goes back to this whole idea of the self-concept. And the self-concept is made up of multiple different parts, but for the purposes of just going through quickly, is the actual self and the ideal self. Actual self, how I see myself in the world now, how I think other people perceive me, how I see myself in the world at this very, very moment in time. The ideal self then, how I want to be perceived by other people, how I want to see myself in the world, what I want my social reality to look like effectively. With Abercrombie and Fitch, that kind of aspirational or ideal self that they were trying to construct through their advertising and so on and so forth was, I'm going to say, even though they kind of gave this idea of kind of the all-American kind of thing, and it was that kind of jock attitude of being good at sports, predominantly it was how you looked. There wasn't a huge amount of like personality. Whereas if you look at Gymshark, it's more aspirational, but in terms of different people, different lifestyles, different backgrounds, but they're striving for, you know, fitness or kind of or a healthy lifestyle, or to achieve something, or competitiveness. So it's almost moved from physical attributes to something which is more kind of, I suppose, intrinsic, which is, again, your motivation to be a better version of you. I think that's the thing that the brands nowadays have copped a lot more, in that you can't just engage in overt forms of sexualization for either of the no matter who you're marketing towards effectively, because you're gonna get called out for it. But brands are still doing the same thing. It's the same. It's like marketing psychology 101, but you're just using different characteristics to actually form or create brands that people are ultimately attracted to.
Well, they mentioned in it though that nowadays brands are more interested in the whole area of, you know, we've talked about before in terms of politics, social, you know, dilemmas, I suppose, that are going on at the moment, you know, whereas they weren't more so then. So like it was all about how we looked, what we were part of, being part of the cool kids, as you said. So like, I suppose when people wore those clothes back then, that they had to make sure that that those people wearing the clothes had to feel different. It's almost like a God complex kind of thing, like, you know, that I'm above everyone else when I start wearing this kind of clothing.
No, you're absolutely right. And even if you listen to the way that the models spoke, like, I mean, if you tell 18, 19, 20-year-old that you're out front and you're being classified as a model, and that's how they did it after there was a court case taken against them, that anyone that was, I can't remember the exact phraseology, but they basically split their staff into you were models.
Impact was the other one.
Impact, which was a stock, someone who was working the stock room effectively, and
just to give them a title, but keep them
that
happy.
was it. But ultimately, if you were a model, you were out front and you were the one selling the different types of clothing. But it got very, very insidious then, because they had quotas on the amount of Asian people, for example, that they would actually hire. They wouldn't. There was one girl that won a case because she was fired because she didn't, or she wasn't able to adhere to the dress code. The reason she wasn't able to adhere to the dress code is because she had an amputated arm, basically, and she couldn't wear the uniform, obviously, in the way that it was meant to be worn by the fucking bloody six-pack fella on the photo. So again, look, it comes back to the most, and again, I remember doing a project back in my old college days when I was in college, and it was a different brand. It was an Irish brand at the time, but even at the time we were kind of looking at this from a kind of a logical perspective, which obviously marketing isn't, right? Marketing is all about emotions, but looking at this from a logical perspective, it was kind of like they're selling clothes, but no one's wearing clothes in any of the adverts. You know what I mean? So again, it isn't about the style, it's about the physique behind the style, which I think is very, very interesting.
Yeah, what you're going to get out of it. The guy that took it over, so it was a brand running 100 years at this stage, very much towards kind of hunting, fishing, that kind of style of things in America. But this guy called Les Wexner came in and took it over, and he was kind of referred to as the Merlin of them all in the US, and he had a load of brands behind him in terms of having the Limited, Bat and Body, probably most notably known Victoria's Secret. And he was just this retail mastermind that knew exactly what to do. He tried everything with Abercrombie & Fitch, and it kind of got somewhere, but it wasn't until, as you already mentioned, the guy Mike Jeffries came in, and he took it over as CEO, and that's when the brand that we know it as today kind of took fruition. But he kind of came in with this, he came in with this kind of theory or formula that elitism plus heritage plus sex appeal plus exclusivity, and that's what it was. That was Abercrombie & Fitch kind of tied down, like, so going on the whole area of the heritage of, you know, that they're kind of the masculine side of things, the elitism, the top sports people, whatever field they were in, obviously the sex appeal of having the guys and the no tops on and all that, and the exclusivity then of going towards certain types of people. But then this was all captured then by the photographer, I can't think of his name now at the moment, but Weber I think was his second name, whereas he was kind of going purely for, as you said, that style of the black and white photo, half naked models in the picture, and obviously these being planted all over the place, and it was just kind of this little group of kind of from the top pushing this image the whole way through the brand, and that's when it kind of started unraveling, I suppose, you know, to cause the issues.
But it makes sense. But again, what I find, and again, marketing nowadays is more like, if you do a case study on something like Abercrombie, like you gave the formula there, right? And at the time, okay, it's very, very strategically well thought out from a business perspective, not an ethical perspective, but a business perspective. And again, back in the kind of 90s, we'll say, when they had this formula, if you played on something like historic form or legacy forms of masculinity, for example, which are again more about physique or whatever you want to call it, then that's a very, very easy thing to play into, because it's a stereotype that everybody knows. And Marlboro have done the same thing in the past with the Marlboro man, again, that rugged cowboy kind of feel and so on and so forth. I think what's different nowadays is that society's conceptualization of what masculinity is very, very fragmented. And therefore, like, so you look at things like, as opposed to having things like hegemonic masculinity, which are focused on things like physique, being the breadwinner, all this sort of stuff, that's seen as very, very dated. Now you've got multiple masculinity theory, whereby, you know, people feel masculine if they vote, for example, if they're a good parent, if they're a good father, if they're, whatever the story is, you know what I mean? So there's all of these different things now that filter into what masculinity is, and it makes it very, very difficult then for brands to create attention for themselves using symbols and using symbolic imagery that, one, it's harder to get in front of people because social media and everything's fragmented anyway, but also because people's interpretation is a lot more critical now, I think, than it possibly was previously, or at least it was harder to be very, very dominant in terms of creating a certain symbol for your brand like you would have been able to do in the past. So I think it's actually a really, really interesting case study of almost stupid caveman branding that really, really worked really, really well.
But not even the branding then, in terms of the in-store experience then, was kind of like no other, I suppose, as well. Where, like, even simple things like having the shutters or whatever on the front window, and there was no window shopping experience, that you couldn't actually see anything, so it created that air of mystery that dragged people into the store to see what was going on. You walk in, then you're obviously hit by the very, very attractive looking people working there, but then you're also hit by the smell of the place, which is a distinct cologne that they pumped into the air, basically. Banging tunes, you barely hear each other speaking when you go into the place. So
you just use the phrase banging tunes,
baggy cans and banging tunes.
Like one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go away with that, am I? But that whole idea of, like, you know, we would talk about before in terms of the theory out there of atmospheric marketing, that it's going to hit all the senses when you go in, and it's kind of going to attract you. That's purely what they were playing on in every shop that they went into. And this guy Mike Jeffries was so strict on how he wanted every store to run, that apparently in the headquarters where they had all the main management teams and all working, he set up mock stores, and that he would walk in before it was rolled out throughout the whole company. He would be so specific on every little area of how it should look and how it should be run and how that model should be facing and that mannequin should be facing there. You know, it was just like, in that kind of thing, I actually, you know, I think that's the way it should be when you're at that level, like, you know, to be so particular about that area. But obviously it was the other stuff that was gone behind was kind of letting everything down.
Yeah, it was discriminatory, which was odd given that he looks like Yoda's left testicle.
He got a few jobs done.
Have you got a few jabs here and there?
But wouldn't you? He was on, what does he was on 40 million a year he was on.
But you'd like to think, and this is going a bit left of field, but like literally like if you had 40 million a year in a salary, you would not care what you look. You would just say, I don't care. I don't care. What are you talking about, you idiots?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But no, I have to say it is a fascinating case. And again, they haven't really recovered. Like they still exist, obviously, they're still there. The brand architecture is structured in a very, very interesting way in that you've got Hollister, which caters for the kind of high school kid still. You've got Abercrombie, which still caters for the college kid, and then you've obviously got Ruel then, which comes afterwards as more of a kind of a sports and leisure brand. So again, very clever in terms of the transitionary period of once you get a customer hooked into one, you transition them nicely onto the next brand. So no, as a business strategy and as an exercise in branding, really, really fascinating. But some of the stuff that company got involved in was absolutely ridiculous, and even the t-shirts that they brought out, which were very, very racist. There was one, just if I check my notes here very, very quickly, they released t-shirts which was basically it was a kind of a graphic image, shall we say, which said the Wong Brothers Laundry Service, and then the slogan was two Wongs can't make it white, which
two Wongs make a white,
can make it white, and like, I mean,
but how they even thought
insane.
that? But that was the thing. It was very, very clear that as I already said, every decision made was from the top down. Do you know? And they were putting out these T-shirts. That wasn't the only one. By the way, there was stuff to do with different religions and everything. They were signed off from day one, and it kind of came to the stage where some of the designers, I think, in the documentary, are saying, like, you know, we were given a kind of rap on the knuckles, but saying, don't do that again, but keep on doing it, like, you know, because you know, they were getting the publicity from it, like, you know, people were coming into the store to buy it, like. But I think it's even where that can go even terribly wrong is, like, that's obviously thought out and it's not reactive to anything, but like that whole area of reactive marketing where you're quick onto the mark, you know, you see a lot of kind of personalized t-shirt companies doing it, and next thing they print something that's like very insensitive 2 or 3 days later. It can go so wrong when you're in that game. Yeah,
they weren't even thinking about that though, and it was working for them. Like, even though there was people, and again, it was this phrase, which is very, very, the most insidious phrase, and they keep on using it throughout, and all of the leadership team throughout the documentary keep on saying it, this all-American, which in their mind was obviously white, macho, heterosexual, just jock, kind of male or female. That was kind of what they were going for, which again, the fact that then became so popular says a lot about, again, people's aspirations and how they're probably easily led. And again, this is during 90s, early 90s and so on.
One of my favourite lines in it was from one of the ladies, she was saying that the kind of structure they were told to base the brand on was, the goal is not to give them what they ask for, but to get them to ask for what you're offering. And I thought that was a phenomenal line. And like, you know, to kind of explain, it's like the whole thing of, you know, trying to please needs when it comes to marketing and, you know, fill wants and all that. But no, you have a certain products, you make them want what you already have.
They're the trendsetters. Like, again, there's a lot of, and again, it's the classic, do you go for product market fit, or do you have the assumption that, no, the market doesn't know what it wants?
Yeah, we'll tell them.
And we'll tell them what the market wants. And again, that's the power of branding, right? And again, I'd say people go and watch the documentary, because it actually goes through all the different types of visuals and how they borrowed from different types of culture and trends at certain moments in times and how people were reacting to that. And again, it was the most influential brand for a certain generation at a particular moment in time. And it's an incredible case study in just how you can manipulate such a large portion of the population.
But it's not an old thing. Like, you know, there is so many brands doing that today in terms of the aspiration stuff. Like even Apple, do you know about going out and constantly buying the next Apple product comes out? Not that there's much changes in it, like, but that's the same brand doing the exact same thing again.
Yeah, but I think it depends on what. So again, I think brands, like I said earlier on, I think brands have got smarter about this, in that now they're appealing to people in ways that aren't as obvious,
like that, you know.
Exactly, but even the kind of the physical or the kind of the look kind of stuff. Obviously, you had that trend with the influencer marketing, right? And even now, that's kind of catching up. So, like, marketing comes in peaks and trough cycles, right? Everything changes. So, I'm not saying that marketers nowadays don't use physical attributes as a means of selling their product. No, they absolutely do that. But there are more examples of marketers being very, very clever in terms of how that is framed in terms of their advertising than you would do traditionally. So again, the example of Gymshark. everyone who's modeling for Gymshark is just a Herculean type figure, predominantly speaking. Now, again, there's a few outliers and stuff like that because, inclusivity, but ultimately the majority of them, and even if they do user-generated content is predominantly of people who are very, very...
knows how to take a photo as well.
Exactly, that kind of thing. So again, even though they're framing it in terms of we want to attract people who are motivated to achieve things and be competitive. And again, not necessarily wrong with that, but it's a different type of aspiration that you are putting in front of people rather than it just being a very, very obvious, this person looks really, really good. You need to look very, very good. Therefore, buy Abercrombie and Fitch.
Yeah.
And
we probably did not even play down slightly about the actual repercussions that they got serious amount of court cases. They had to pay about 50 million in damages. What was interesting was they were appointed a court, basically a supervisor, babysitter, to kind of watch over all the decisions being made, including into all their policies in terms of inclusivity and all that, and taking away every bit of racism and sexist and everything.
Which didn't really happen, right?
It didn't. They hired a diversity officer or whatever it was called, which he speaks out in the documentary. But by the end of it, there were so many cases going against the photographer, the CEO, eventually the actual owner of the company as well. A new CEO stepped in 2015, I think. Fran Horvitz, who's still there today, but your man Mike Jeffries walked away with a nice 27 million retirement package.
They always do.
Go away, keep your head between your legs and don't say nothing kind
exactly,
of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of court cases, one thing that has gripped the attention of every single user of Twitter, Instagram, and anyone who's just generally in the world at the moment is the court case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which is being broadcast on Court TV in the United States, which is just, it's phenomenal viewing
every
altogether.
Piece of court.
It's incredible.
It's not even the artist's impression. It's not like the highlights. It's everything.
It's absolutely everything. Now, I've never seen, because look, this has happened before, right? So OJ Simpson's trial, that was broadcast, decision or whatever, all that kind of stuff was all broadcast, right? But this is just playing out way differently. And I don't know, is it what I find fascinating, because obviously, look, Depp's kind of legal team were up first, right? And now kind of Amber Heard is up on the stand kind of today, tomorrow, a couple of days afterwards. But what's fascinating is the narrative was set by people watching Depp and his behaviour the first couple of days. People have made up their minds, and it is a trial by PR. It is absolutely incredible. It's almost, how I would see it is that it's almost at the stage whereby the legal judgment almost doesn't matter because Depp has won the cultural battle already, which
and
is
almost that's more important to him because he'll back into jobs, back into work. Do you know?
It's a fascinating way to actually see a court case on kind of unravel. Now, what I thought was interesting is that obviously, look, they knew that this was going ahead in terms of like Amber Heard was losing this kind of what you want to call a public battle or public war. So
public hearts.
Fuck's sake. So last week, she sacked her PR team, which was called Precision Strategies. So that was a firm based out of New York, which was run by Stephanie Cutter, and she was a former advisor to President Barack Obama during his first term in office. So obviously a very, very reputable, intelligent, reputable kind of an agency. So Depp is suing Heard for $50 million over her alleged 2018 Washington Post op-ed chronicling her experiences as a domestic violence survivor. And Depp obviously denies that any of this has happened and that it's cost him a huge amount of money and so on and so forth. So
what did he say? It cost. He was asked to understand what does it cost him, and he said nothing short of everything.
Yeah, which is a very Johnny Depp thing to say. Like, I mean, now I would say like, I'm not commenting on the end result because I don't know, right? I'm not following it enough to actually make a logical judgment on who is right and who is wrong. All I'm seeing is a lot of TikTok content, which is framing. And again, it's
like everything we talked about in terms of the political stuff and everything. You're going to see the algorithms are going to feed you based on what you're consuming. So like it could be one or two ways, but all we are seeing is Johnny Depp is laughing again. He's making a fool out of the lawyers. He's doing, that's all the
headline is Johnny Depp decimates Amber Heard's lawyer or whatever the situation is, which again, I think like, I mean, there is a more serious thing here because we spoke, like, so to be fair, we always speak about this in terms of your Trumps, your Brexits, your fucking whatever else it is. And we say it's terrible because of that. This is probably a bit more, I'm not going to say it's not as serious because it is obviously domestic violence, but at the same time, it's two celebrities and even the judge is kind of going, for the love of God, this is just surreal. And some of the stories are just like whatever. But it does present an issue whereby even myself as someone who knows that the algorithms are structured in this particular way,
you're getting sucked in.
I'm being sucked into it 100%. And again, for me, I'm looking at it and it's almost humor. It's almost like it's Big Brother. That's what it is. Like even the first thing that I saw about the trial was when Amber Heard's lawyer turned around to Depp and said, you drank a mega pint of wine. Yeah. Like, a mega pint?
A large glass.
A large glass of wine. Or the other one that he had, which is a quote, was there was a photograph presented of him where he had the ice cream all over him. And in the typical droll Depp sort of voice, he goes, Amber gave me the ice cream. I was not partaking in the festival of ice cream. It was just so funny. Like, but again, like Depp is good at that, right? So it's very hard to actually discern until the judgment is made what is actually right or what is actually wrong, which again I find fascinating just from looking at it abstractly, being entertained by it, and yet knowing that I shouldn't be being entertained by it, and knowing that this isn't how a trial should happen is just very, very interesting.
And one step further, I'm watching it with the two of them, especially more so when Amber's on the stage. I'm watching it with their reactions thinking, these are two professional actors.
They are, absolutely.
You know,
it's bizarre. And again, it seems like it's more about, like, they don't need the money, right?
No.
So it's more
but
about
even the fact that
the culture war.
You're at that level that you going into a court case, I'll get a PR firm involved. You know, you're at that level, like, you know, so it'd be interesting to see what way it plays out. But as you said, she's going, it's not that she has to do something or turn it around or fix it, but no matter what, so far, unless something tragically goes the other way, he's after winning it already. It
is, yeah. No, I tend to agree. Now, again, I don't know, and I haven't really made my mind up on this yet, but like it does just say a lot. And look, again, there's the stuff going on in Ukraine at the moment, just come out of COVID. People are looking for a bit of lightheartedness in anywhere that they can find it. People don't want to get sucked into the kind of this dark content constantly, but there is something that has to be said about, like, it is a serious topic. It is about domestic abuse. Either Johnny Depp abusing Amber Heard or it's Amber Heard abusing Johnny Depp. It's one or the other, right? So there is something very, very serious and insidious going on here. And the fact that it's after turning into a circus, there's probably something not great about that either. But again, look, I think it's one worth revising when it's all over and done with, and seeing what the kind of public reaction is at that point. And again, something can happen tomorrow which flips everything on its head straight away. So I just find the whole thing is fascinating from just a consumer perspective and looking at how people are reacting to it.
Did she hire in a new PR firm?
She did, yeah. I don't know the names of them now exactly, but yeah, there's a new PR firm
I wonder if she was given the chance to sack her solicitor.
So solicitor's brutal, I have to say. Like, again, just reading the... Is that your signature? Yeah. Yes, that is my signature.
For the third time,
the third time, yes, you read that beautifully.
Good.
And again, he's a comedian, right? Yeah. That's what he is. Like, you know, all the characters that he's playing are almost coming out in this. And then you're kind of asking yourself, is he always just playing himself when he's playing these characters, or is he using his knowledge of how people perceive these characters to create a character
they're
that he's
attached to
using.
The characters? Are they attached to him if he does it this way?
It's a fascinating kind of it's a very, very interesting kind of a PR war that's going on at the moment, I think. Yeah,
we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of weeks. So I suppose in other news there, it's after popping up in the last...
Is there anything fun that we can actually talk about? So already today we've had sexualization of advertising with one of the worst brands of all time, and we've had a domestic abuse case that is basically playing out on TikTok. Is there anything fun that we can fucking talk about while I finish off? What is actually, in fairness, it's actually a very, 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 very nice beer, Yellow Belly. Very nice. I'm impressed by it.
No, it is very nice.
Very drinkable is what I'd say. Like, you know, sometimes with these, they're nice, but you could only have one or two.
Very heavy.
I could
It's nice and light,
I
actually.
could sink 7 or 8 of them down no waters. And we might do by the time we take down we take down all the lighting and stuff later on. Sorry, Owen.
Fun. Right. How about Tinder?
I love Tinder.
Right. Okay.
That
Here we go.
sounded weird. I like news about Tinder.
Keep that in. But this one could be for you. Actually, no, it can't really be. But Tinder are launching pop-up pubs in the UK aimed at singles and their dogs. You don't have a dog, Dave.
Don't have a dog.
I can lend you one. Tinder is launching pop-up pub experiences aimed at bringing singles and their dogs together. The Bark and Spark are pubs aimed at celebrating dogs being the ultimate dating partner. 3 of the pubs launching this weekend: London, Manchester and Edinburgh.
Bark and Spark does sound a lot better than doggy dating, to be fair.
It could have went very wrong there.
It could have went very, very badly. But it's like the Thursday thing. Again, it's like with all these dating, unless you create an environment whereby people can actually physically meet up with each other, and that's either via a very, very good algorithm, with all your security and safety guards. People who haven't watched episode 1, watch episode 1. We talk all about that kind of stuff. But again, you need physical, or you need
just for clarification, people going back to listen to episode 33. Episode 33.
I mean the first video episode.
there we go.
Of course I fucking do. The very first episode.
They fucking say nothing
They'll
about
know
that.
straight away. Go back and watch episode 1 anyway. It's a beautiful 30 episodes to start off with. But like the point here is that brands like that, if they want people to actually keep on using the app, are going to have to engage in more experiential forms of, like, you can call it marketing, or you can just call it just
not
events
just apps,
anyway.
anything. You can't just go through the motions and keep doing what we're doing. You know, you have to kind of event it and change it
And we
up.
saw Thursday are doing it, right? And they're doing it very, very well. Tinder, I've never heard of them kind of doing something like this as such. So, and it makes sense. And look, something as small as that, right? So break it down to its lowest common denominator, in that a lot of people that go on first dates are nervous when they go on first dates, right? That's logical. If you both have dogs, what can you talk about? Your fucking dogs.
Yeah,
What's your
icebreaker.
dog? Everyone. That's exactly what people are going to talking about. Oh, what is your dog? What's your dog's name? Why'd you pick the dog? What's the dog like? Then the dogs are going on dates as well.
Or
Realistically,
end up killing each other.
Or they end up killing each other with one or the other. But again, it's structured. It structures the event in such a way whereby people lose the nervousness very, very quickly. But then, of course, people could get on with someone very, very quickly
and trying to get rid of the dog.
and then try and get rid of them
bringing up
afterwards.
the
Yeah,
friends.
exactly. Yeah. So no, well done. Tim.
I think there was an interesting line.
That was funner. Any more of
Do you
those?
like that?
Any more of those kind of ones?
Well,
We should
here-
just do all of them from now on.
for any of our listeners now that use Tinder.
Psychological marketing bullshit. Go on.
There was a big twist of events there. All right. For any of our users, listeners that use the app, having a dog in a Tinder profile picture can generate 5% more matches, according to Tinder. And among the top dog, Huskies are most popular dog to have featured, followed by Golden Retrievers and German Shepherds.
One
There
of
you go. A
my
big
friends,
husky.
one of my friends who you know, but I won't tell you who it is on the pod. I'll tell you afterwards.
Is that
No,
I won't.
no. Was actually going to set up like a consultancy service where he would help people put together their Tinder profiles, because they were just very, very good at it. So they were going to...
I'm going through some of my head who this is.
Give me your phone there for a couple of hours and we'll get the photos done and the bio and the whole fucking lot, like, you know?
It's the new form of CV building.
Absolutely, that's what it is, like, you know?
So-
But again, it's attention marketing, right? Ultimately, you're very, very quick decision making.
Building your personal brand.
Fuck off with your fucking personal brand.
Go on, give me
Not
something
everything is a
exciting
brand.
that
Not
you
everything's a
have
brand.
there.
So I was so news that came out earlier on today, which I don't think you're aware of because you were busy driving the car. But interestingly enough, Apple earlier on today announced that the iPod has now been discontinued.
Oh,
They are no longer
I
manufacturing
can't remember the last time I saw an
iPods.
iPod.
Yeah, I know. Neither could I, to be honest with you. So 20 years after it was released.
As in like the what was it called? Was it the Nano?
No,
was it?
hang on here now. So I'm going to do a quiz.
Oh, I've already won the quiz. So
No. This is the quiz. So they've been around for the last 20 years thereabouts, and a lot of them discontinued and so on and so forth. Since Apple launched the iPod, there have been 5 different versions of the
are
iPod.
they?
Can you name them? And if you name them, I'll get you.
A can of yellow belly beer.
I'll get you a nice whiskey next time we're out.
Oh, right, okay. You had the nano.
Ding,
You had the shuffle.
ding.
Heck. Owen's trying to whisper, but he can't shout too loud because he pick him up on the microphone.
I know that's what he is. You can hear him. Who's the strange voice?
There was
in the
nano
background?
something. I think there was a version of the nano.
No, I'll give you a clue. There is only one nano here.
There's only one nano.
Yeah.
Feck it, no. Owen might help. Owen, go on, give us a shout.
Did you say shuffle?
I said shuffle.
What about just the normal iPod?
Was there such thing as normal iPod?
I'll give you so classic iPod.
Okay, no, after that I'm done.
And there's two more.
I don't know.
Can't name them.
There was the little one with the clip on it. That's the nano, is it? That was the big one then. Was that the classic?
That was the classic. So
Right.
ultimately, there was the classic, which you got.
Yeah.
The second version was the touch.
So it was
There was the shuffle, which you
I
got.
had the shuffle, that's why, yeah.
There was, which I'm disappointed you didn't get, the mini. And then there was the nano. So no nice whiskey for you, but you've got to get me one because you lost the quiz. So that's how that works. So that's the end of
iPods.
Dave's quiz, or whatever we're calling this segment of the show going forward.
General trivia.
General trivia, yeah, exactly.
Do you notice I topped up your snakes as well this week?
You did, and I came in, and there's Love Hearts.
There's love hearts there, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
the
for you.
listeners will know what Love Hearts are. Absolutely amazing. Now, again, don't fucking eat them, please.
They
if you
were
wouldn't
also
mind.
gifted to us.
But yeah. So another bit of news that literally just came in as we were coming on air effectively is that EA Sports, who are the well-renowned video game producer, have announced that FIFA 23 will be the very last in its long-running series of football video games to be replaced by a new franchise called EA Sports FC. And you can actually see it on Twitter in the last number of hours. A lot of clubs have been tweeting out, delighted to be part of this new series, obviously branded and all the rest of it, but effectively that. But it's very, again, it's probably good to go out at the top, but it's very, very interesting to see a brand kill off one of their most successful products.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for years, like growing up in the schoolyard, it was, are you a Pro Evolution Soccer man or are you a FIFA man ultimately?
Yeah.
And my God, if you were in the wrong, like if you went over to someone's house,
FIFA was always much stronger though.
always. Sure, they had to, like, you mean, so
like
FIFA,
I wouldn't be massing the game, but I definitely always had a game of FIFA knocking around somewhere.
FIFA always had the rights. So like, I mean, if you played Pro Evolution Soccer, you used to play with like Red Brick FC or whatever they're called. That would be Man United.
Right.
They didn't have any of the rights to anything, basically, do you know?
It's like, where are they based?
Yeah, so it's just a Red Brick Football Club. But that's why they were always, Joe, they were always the dominant kind of brand. But there was some great games back in the day. I think it was FIFA. It was in 96. You could do like indoor football. There was FIFA Street.
I remember FIFA Street,
game.
yeah. But when it comes to the FIFA side of things, like they include in, am I right in saying the League of Ireland and stuff as well? So does that mean Cork City were in it? Were they?
Yeah. No, we're not at the moment because we were relegated.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention the war. We're top of the league. Yeah, we're in it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but no, we'll be back in it next year. We're back in it for this.
We'll light a candle.
This iteration, exactly. Yeah.
And what way does that work? Like, do they come down and approach the club and tell them we're including you or whatever? Like, you know,
no, so the system
mock-up of the players.
No, there's systems in place. So you send up whatever headshots, send up your jersey specs, what everything's meant to look like. There's then people who rank the players for their different kind of stats and all that kind of jazz. So it's all
you wouldn't want your top player to be ranked down low, would you?
I know, yeah. It's relatively scientific, actually, to be fair, how they do it. But yeah, the main news is that they're creating this new brand, franchise, whatever you want to call it.
And they're going to big start of the game, though, wasn't it? It was like EA Sports, isn't it?
It's in the game.
Yeah, it's good. So that's kind of it, I think, for this week.
So we got through the documentary. But if anyone has any recommendations of other marketing or businessy type documentaries to review and have a chat about, by all means, send in suggestions.
There's a couple of good
TikTok,
ones there now on
Instagram.
Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, we should do Fire Festival. next
Fire Festival.
Fire Festival, because
I haven't watched it yet. I know
Have you not watched
I
it?
should have, but I haven't watched
no,
it.
I'm going to send it to you. There is nothing more fascinating about watching a factual documentary about a load of rich white kids being stranded on an island in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's absolutely hilarious. Like, it's absolutely brilliant.
I put it on the list. So, for anyone else, just in case you forgot, the one who was White Hot was the name of the documentary we were talking
Which
about this
kind
week.
of sums up the actual the core tenet of the documentary in and of itself and what that brand stood for, I suppose.
Good stuff. So, thanks again to everyone for joining us this week. You can follow us again on social media, subscribe. Thanks to Owen, our producer. Thanks again to the guys down in Wexford and Yellow Belly Beer for sending up some brew, looking after a fellow Wexford fella here.
It's him, by the way. It's not me. I'm not
No,
fucking.
he's
Not,
definitely
not,
from
not
Cork.
one of them.
So thanks very much, guys. We'll chat to you again next week.
Talk to you later.